Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the webinar. We're going to be talking about building a program for 2023, what needs to change. And I think very much, regardless of whether you are an economic optimist or indeed a pessimist, we all recognize that we're looking at a very uncertain 2023, and we've got some fabulous people to help you navigate the things you need to do to move through 2023 successfully. So before we start, just got a couple of housekeeping things I need to cover. A reminder, put it in your diaries. Channel Focus Virtual will happen on the 19th and 20th of April 2023. So the 19th and 20th of April 2023, put those dates in your diary. It will be an absolutely fabulous event. And one of the things we've had great success with in these webinars is people really participating, contributing to the webinar. So down the bottom of your screen, you have a chat button. So if you've got any comments, if you've got any feedback, very importantly, if you have questions that you'd like to ask our panelists, please pop them into that chat section and we will raise them with our panel. So without further ado, I am going to introduce our panelists to you. And our first panelist is Pat Carroll, and he is the Managing Director of Bridge Partners. Pat brings 20 years of high-tech advisory and internal leadership experience in channel sales and marketing functions. He has a strong history of driving success and growth for tech and cloud companies like Microsoft and VMware, where he's led successful design, deployment, and management of many global channel and sales programs. And when he's not doing that in his free time, you can find Pat in his RV on some beautiful patches of the Pacific Northwest, often with a fly rod in hand. So Pat, briefly, tell us about Bridge.
Hey, Bridge Partner's been around for about 15 years. I've been working with the largest telcos, tech companies, and cloud providers, helping them grow their revenue, activate their channels, and accelerate pipeline. They create value with the customers to make sure that the value expressed by those companies are felt in the marketplace. We work with the top cloud providers as well and design and run their GTM and cloud channel partner programs. Additionally, we support a range of companies in developing their channel strategies and implementations. Our team includes people from technology companies like myself, marketing agencies, and leading consultant and management consultant companies. It allows us to bridge the strategy to the execution. In the partner area specifically, we support the partner go-to-market strategies. How do you get the most value out of your channel and your investments? We also help you develop joint pipelines in your partner ecosystems and help people engage with those cloud providers. Finally, we have a sizable practice focused on driving corporate sustainability strategy and execution. Couple fun facts about us: we're 60% female in our workforce, and we're committed to net zero carbon and zero waste by 2025 as an alignment to our sustainability strategy and practice.
Okay. And our second panelist is Dave Taylor, and Dave is the CMO of Impartner. He was 2016 Utah Business Magazine CXO of the Year. He's been involved in 5 successful exits, and I love the way this is written. It also has in brackets "and counting." And he's a founding team member at Impartner. So Dave, 1 minute on Impartner and what it is that you guys do.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. Happy to do it. Impartner is one of the global leaders in channel management and channel enablement software. We have a product line that runs from fairly pragmatic and tactical tools like our Google Ads for the channel that lets CMOs and channel marketing teams draw their partner community into their Google Ads strategy without messing up their bids and messing up their landing pages, et cetera, to a TCMA product that lets you build nurturing campaigns, advertising campaigns for your partners to take advantage of, all the way to full-blown partner relationship management that ties it all together with deal registration, lead distribution, partner compliance management, et cetera. So big suite of tools that goes kind of from one end to the other. And just thrilled to be here. Appreciate the opportunity to share some of the knowledge that we have.
Fabulous. And our third panelist is Ken Fox, and he's the CEO of Channel Mechanics. Ken is an accomplished leader with 20 years experience in the channel. He's got a master's degree in software with an MBA. He's transformed Channel Mechanics from a startup into an award-winning SaaS provider that is truly interrupting and disrupting channel program execution. And Ken is passionate about enabling their customers to get the most from their partners. And in his spare time, Ken is a taxi driver for his 4 kids, who he is constantly running around to different activities. So Ken, tell us a little about Channel Mechanics.
Hey, Rod, thanks very much. Yeah, so Channel Mechanics, we're a born in the cloud company, about 10 years old, and we have a channel enablement platform. So helping our vendors, our customers, take their partner programs to market and ensure ease of doing business for their partner community and right on out to their customers. That's us.
Fabulous. And Stephen Kellum. Stephen is the CRO of Structured Web. Stephen also has 20 years in the channel. And prior to joining Structured Web, Stephen ran and sold a successful MSP and a channel incentives company. Stephen is a bit of a health nut. He's a triathlete, a surfer, and also does a whole set of other health-related activities. So Stephen, tell us briefly about Structured Web.
Sure, thanks, Rod. Structured Web is a leading channel marketing automation platform. Our mission is to simplify channel marketing execution for partners. We are 100% dedicated to marketing. We don't do PRM, we don't do MDF, we don't do incentives, we don't do rebates, but we integrate really well into those platforms. And I think that's going to be a big part of our discussion today too, when we start getting into the automation side of things. And because of our focus, because it's strictly on marketing, it's really allowed us to innovate and come out with things like personalized video, smart workflows, drag and drop editors, webinar syndication. It really helped us focus and deliver some pretty cool products out there.
Excellent. And finally, we have Richard Flynn. And Richard is a partner and the CMO of Spur Reply. He's a founder of the Spur Group. Richard is an industry veteran with nearly 30 years experience. He's helped many companies in the tech industry shape and execute their channel strategies and go-to-market approaches. Richard is a firm believer that we face a new renaissance of channel innovation as companies redefine their go-to-market approach, as cloud solutions and remote workers become the norm. He believes now is the time for true creativity in the channel space, and I'm sure he'll be talking about that during the webinar. And in his off time, Richard focuses on family, painting, and architecture. He finds his one empty nest becomes crowded once again as his college-age kids find their way home during these current times. So Richard, tell us briefly about Spur Reply.
Yeah, so we are a leading go-to-market consulting firm. We kind of focus, and what differentiates us is a lot of the fact that we do end-to-end. So we help people with their strategy, actually implement it. We work with many of the companies that are represented today in terms of rolling out their solutions. We've been very fortunate in that we've helped some large players like Intel and VMware and Microsoft design their partner programs. But we also work with companies that are much smaller, companies like Cohesity, Imperva, and many others also with their partner programs. So we've spent a lot of time and consideration thinking about this topic and are ready to share our experiences and the experiences of our customers.
Fabulous. Now, one of the things we'd love to do is obviously we're all looking at the situation. People are reading it in very different ways. Some people, as I say, are still very much the economic optimist. Some are the economic pessimist. I'd love to take a sample and see where we all are. So we're going to start with a couple of polls. So Maddie, if you could pop up the first question, and if everyone could pop in their answer. So if we look at 2023 versus 2022, what is your channel sales forecast for 2023? Is it an increase of 10%, an increase of 1 to 10%? Will it remain the same? Will it decrease by 1 to 10% or decrease by 10% plus? Please, if everyone could pop in your answers now.
I know the right answer, by the way. If anyone wants to DM me, I can share that.
So if everyone could pop in their answers.
That's what happens when you own the CRM, right?
Yeah, but Dave, you can't vote, right? See, there's a little bit in the red right down below
Stephen,
there.
you know how I know I can't vote? I just tried.
Just try. You're a rule breaker.
Okay. Maddie, how are we doing in terms of answers?
Nice.
Okay. Wow.
Hey, there we go. So
Beautiful.
55% of us still think we are going to increase channel sales by 10% plus. Another 30% think we are going to increase sales by between 1 and 10%. 7% of us think we're pretty much the same. And 8% of us do see a decrease in channel sales in 2023 versus 2022. So we are still extremely optimistic about where we are going to sit with channel sales in 2023. So let's close out that question and pop up the next one. And if everyone could please just pop in their answers. So Maddie, channel team headcount. Will your channel team headcount, this is your internal headcount, not the number of partners you have, the number of people in your channel team for 2023 versus 2022, increase by 10% plus, increase by 1 to 10%, remain the same, decrease by 1 to 10%, or decrease by 10% plus? So please, please pop in those answers. Keep those answers coming in. We'll give it another few moments so everyone gets a chance to pop their answers in, and we will let everyone, we will share these answers with everyone who has joined the webinar after the call. So it will give you a snapshot of where everyone is. So I'm going to close this one in less than 10 seconds. So final chance to pop your answers in. So Maddie, if you could close the poll and share the answers. So if we remember, a large percentage of us were going to increase sales by more than 10%, but we're sure as heck not going to increase our headcount by 10%. So we are actually being asked to do more with less. 50% of us either with a headcount that's going to remain the same, 7% decreased by 1 to 10%, and 4% decreased by 10% plus. So we are being asked to do an awful lot with less headcount resources in 2023, which I think is a really telling factor. So basically, as John's pointed out, no, more with the same. So same headcount, more sales, absolutely. So Maddie, close that one down and pop up the third one. Your channel budget, will your channel budget for 2023 versus 2022 increase by 10% plus, increase by 1 to 10%, remain the same, decrease by 1 to 10%, or decrease by 10% plus? So channel budget, what are you forecasting for 2023 versus 2022? Pop those answers in now. Let's see if we can get everyone popping their answers into the question. So keep those answers coming through. Keep popping those answers in. Okay, and we're going to close the poll in just a few seconds time, so just a few seconds to pop your answer in there. Okay, Maddie, if you can close the poll and show the answers. So 19% of us still see that our channel budget is going to increase by 10% plus, 22% by 1 to 10%, but these are still not in line with our expectations for channel sales growth. So again, it's not quite the same, perhaps overall a slight increase in channel budget, but nothing like the increase that we are being expected to deliver in channel sales. So again, more with the same. And so we're really going to have to look at what we're doing with those budgets and how we're spending them in 2023. And one final question. So Mads, if you can put up the final one. Do you envisage any major changes to your partner program in 2023? Simple answer, yes or no. Keep popping those answers in. Okay, nice, simple answer. Close this one in a few seconds. So last chance to get your answers in now. So Mads, if you could close that out. And a whopping 64% of us envisage major changes to their partner programs in 2023. So that's absolutely huge. So as I say, these answers will be available to everyone post-webinar. I think they make some very, very major reading. So I'm going to start with you, Richard. I know you're passionate about this. People are being asked to do and maintain a significantly increased sale with the same, or indeed in some cases, lower resources. What should people be focused on?
You know, it's interesting because let me first off say that I'm not a software company, but I would say make sure you've got a great software and systems process behind what it is that you're trying to do. You know, you've got 3 vendors that are here, and you know, there are other alternatives too, but we are seeing that data-driven approach is definitely where you have to be. Because you know, as those results all showed, it's actually about being smarter. It's not about working harder. And so you need to be able to identify who are the right partners, what are the right things that are effective for them, how are you managing the experience, how are you driving you know, the right resources to accomplish the right business objectives, and all of that requires you to have a really smart back end these days.
Hey, Rod, can I comment on that? Look, Richard, I think, and we're all going to talk about it, I think it's going to be connecting those dots as you build out that program, because if you're going to automate, you have to integrate. You know, I stopped talking about don't automate for automation's sake anymore a long time ago. You just need to automate well and get ahead of the curve. So you're going to have people working strategically instead of tactically, but you got to tie all that stuff together.
Absolutely. And you know, I think that what we're seeing still is that, you know, let's face it, everybody's kind of standardized on one CRM solution. And, you know, for the most part, it can do some of the things that you need to do in the partner space, but it's probably not the best of breed solution. So it is, how do you integrate all that together? How do you build a program around it? How do you really develop an experience for the partners? You know, those are all the key challenges that you have.
And Ken, if I can bring you in, what do you, a lot of people saying there's going to be a lot of change for 2023. What are your clients asking for? What are the things that you're seeing as we approach what are going to be very uncertain times?
Yeah, I think in uncertain times, execution is key. We saw some of the poll results there. People want to obviously do, the same or more with the same. So in terms of, execution for your channel, I think the important things are around being very easy to interact with. So, people talk about price, and we've seen with inflation, the mad price increases over the last while. Partners are, sensitive to a point of price, but one of the things they're very sensitive is understanding how to work with the vendor. So what I see vendors do, or the smarter vendors doing, is spending a huge amount of time simplifying their go-to-market strategy through the channel and enabling partners to work with them in a very easy way, to understand their programs, to understand their discounting, to understand their benefits, and that creates competitive advantage for those vendors in the market. I don't see, Rod, like we haven't seen, obviously we've seen things like, the MSP programs coming along and all the rest. The whole ecosystem the channel has become an ecosystem, I suppose. So the change is more so dealing with all of those variables as opposed to major changes in partner programs themselves. I think it's the adoption of the ecosystem is the biggest change we see.
Mm-hmm. And Dave, what are you seeing with your customers?
Yeah, it's expected to do more with less. Hey, welcome to the 20s. I mean, direct corporate marketing teams are expected to do more with less. It's all about efficiency right now. I'm sure we've all seen, the series of comments made by Arvind Krishna, IBM CEO, over the last month or so, which is basically damn the torpedoes, damn the recession, we're moving ahead, we're doubling, tripling down on the channel. Channel is what people are turning to because they're looking for efficiencies. The channel model is the only leveraged model. In direct sales, I know what's going to cost me to hire a enterprise savvy sales rep. I know what quota I can assign them. I know what result I'll get. So I can scale it, but it's not a leveraged scale. Indirect is all about leverage. And so I think companies are recognizing that. Things have shifted in the ecosystem around channel these days, but they're shifting towards, not away from. I think it's a great time to be involved in the channel because people are looking for solutions like this. And automation. Can you imagine running a direct sales organization these days without a CRM to kind of prop it up? It's a lunacy to think about. So I think there are tools and processes that facilitate effective revenue growth through indirect. And and I'll echo what Richard said a second ago. I'm not a consulting group, but my very first comment that I had jotted down to myself to make sure I mentioned was, turn to the people that have done this repeatedly and successfully and let them kind of guide you through it. It's a great first step.
Okay. And Pat, in terms of one of the things we've got to do, the obvious thing is to double down on the channel. Some companies are doing that, some companies are not. What are the key things in terms of positioning the channel to the C-suite? What are the kind of numbers that you need to have available so you can convince the C-suite that this is something that absolutely is essential to the company as we move into these interesting times?
You hit the first point on the number you're right on the head. It's numbers. And I've been in a lot of companies, and some of them have been partner first companies. Other ones have been led by what I would call enterprise sales leaders that don't understand the channel. There's really a couple things you're going to really need to do, and the first thing is measure it. If you don't measure it, you're going to be in trouble. And I'll go back to the PRM systems, the co-sell, being able to measure co-sell, being able to measure deal registration and influence revenue for companies like the GSIs is going to be super important, because you really need to align with the C-suite and what their goals and objectives are around revenue and around customer success. Customer success is going to be a new, not new, but it's going to grow within what the channel's responsibilities are going to be going forward. You're finding that the more that you have partners involved, the more that your systems get embedded and integrated into the customers. And that means your long-term revenue starts being much more consistent and effective. So you really move out your period from 1-2 years of ensuring that revenue to multiple years because of the embedding and the broader platforms.
Mm-hmm. And Stephen, touching on that measurement again, how do you get those numbers? Because often they're buried in many, many different places within the organization.
Yeah, I'm going to start there, and then I'm going to end up back in simplification, because I love what Ken said originally. I think it comes back in. I think we owe the audience to dig a little deeper into simplification, because we say simplify, That doesn't mean it's easy. So I think there's some pieces there. Look, my 3 key topics here were simplify, automate, and then measure ROI across everything. I think having one ROI measurement isn't going to get it done, right? It needs to be at the top of the funnel, all the way to the bottom of the funnel. And realistically, the only way to get that is to automate everything. And by the way, when I say automate everything, you can do that. You have to be very careful where you spend your dollars on automation. If you don't have budgets to go after big budgets on that, you need to make sure you get the right automation. But I think you got to tie it all together. If you have silos of data, information one sitting in one department, one sitting in the other department, how do you make a decision? How do you know what are the right partners to invest in? How do you know it's the right program? I mean, ultimately, you're going to measure growth, but then going all the way up, well, what are the actions that the partners are taking on a day-to-day basis? How are they responding to your CAMs? How are they involved in those meetings? What sort of behavior modification? Where are those starting points? If you have everybody in this room and the other automation platforms out there tied together and they can see it in one place, both you and the partner, then you can make successful decisions. Then you can use your resources wisely. Otherwise, look, you're going to wind up back in the same place.
So Richard, let me bring you into this. Data in different silos. You've got to provide really good numbers. You've got to understand what's going on. How do you pull it together? What are some specific things you've seen and done to help this happen?
Well, I'm going to be a contrarian here for just a second. It's funny because we talk about simplify, and I think you absolutely have to simplify the partner experience. But the other side of it is that actually we see that programs are becoming much more complicated. You're going after a bunch of different types of partners now that you never perhaps were doing in the past. You've got various different flavors for potentially different marketplaces that you're going into. You've got a lot more gated benefits that aren't necessarily linked to a program level or something like that. They are come into play when you've completed some task or activity or hit some independent milestone. So in many ways, programs are becoming much, much more complicated. And so I think that, it relates a little bit to what, Pat was talking about and some other people. You have to really understand what are your priorities, because you are being asked to be doing more with less. And so, first off, make sure that you're generating a good experience. Second off, make sure that you've thought through the strategy and the complexity of what you need to do, and you've shaped the architecture of your program to support that. And then have that set of measurement and systems so that you can show a result both internally and externally to your partners. I mean, one of the great things about many of these systems that we're talking about have a single pane of glass that allow you to look at both your results as a partner, as well as being able to show those partners' results to people internally. And those are really the key, because what we're seeing is that, I joked that, I'm 30 years into this, in the past, everybody was a vendor's partner. You were an IBM partner or a Microsoft partner or a VMware partner. And over the years, that's now changed. If I'm a partner, I might not even really tell my customers what's the technology behind what it is that I'm selling. I'm selling myself and my value, which means that you have to really have that really managed experience for those partners in a way that's going to make them, care about doing business with you and helping them be successful as a partner.
Richard, what I would add to that is they are Microsoft partners, they are AWS partners, and they're your partners as well. And that's where the complexity is coming in, is where do the benefits even come from? Because like partners can find benefits in 3 different
absolutely. I probably should have been a little clearer. It's they no longer define themselves as being a vendor's partner.
And they're not your partner anymore. They're everybody's partner, right?
Yeah, and the competitive environment. I mean, it's funny. We have a hierarchy that we look at that we call, the partner business proposition, that looks at a lot of different elements to see how competitive you are out in the marketplace. And I think that one of the biggest changes that we've seen is that the relationship that they have with the vendor, it might sound like that was first, but it hadn't traditionally. It had normally been, how competitive are you in the marketplace, in terms of a market momentum. But now there's so many different alternatives around whatever solution it is that you're offering in the marketplace. Odds are that there's 3 or 4 fairly good competitors, to you, that partners are no longer tolerant. If you burn them in terms of a missed opportunity or not being responsive, or they can't find content, or they can't, talk to the right person at the right time, they just move on to the next vendor. And that's something that is the different stakes that we see today.
Hey, can we go back to simplicity for just a second? Because look, and I love what all you guys think on this, Richard, because I agree, partner experience, you have to simplify that for everything. So that it actually takes work. But this is where I was saying, if you connect the dots, if you do that work and you set it up correctly, right automation, right integrations, right programs, it's going to pay back afterwards. You're going to have to invest in that. But I think in the long run, it becomes easier to streamline. But look, there's other things out there that are really simple to do besides automation. Like I look at guidelines. I used to run an MDF company. Look, some of you guys' guidelines out there are just horrific. Right? Your partners read that and go, I hate you. So, I mean, there are simple things that you can do to in this experience.
Okay, let me bring some other people in. So, Ken, bringing you into this, let's get specific. If you look to 2023, you look at where we've been in 2022. What are the key things that your customers are asking for? What are the changes? What changes do you see in their requirements for their channel partners?
Yeah, well, there's lots, Rob, but just kind of following up or leading into that, just one of the things they call it is internal enablement. Excuse me. So Richard covered it really well there about the complexity of programs and the ecosystem. Well, the ecosystem is reversing in that complexity. So when a partner comes to whatever your portal is, we call it a single pane of glass, regardless of whether they're a referral, an influence, a traditional reseller, etc. Enabling them to only see what's relevant to them is what makes things complex, and is why automation now has become a must. And if you think about, I'm a partner, I might work with, 5, 7, 10 vendors. The vendors that are enabling them to instantly understand their offers are the ones that are winning. And then on the internal side of the world, where we've actually done a lot of work with vendors over the last year or so that has been really successful, is what they call enabling their account managers or PAMs or whatever they call them, different names. And we've even done work with one very large vendor who built a business case to do the automation to enable their 200 account managers to actually see the same thing about all their partners regardless. So it's almost like an internal QBR chart in one go. And that really enables those account managers to become extremely sales focused, that they can say, hey, you sell another 5 or 50K of this product or whatever it is, guess what? You get this discount. So if you think about it, it's two sides of the same coin. The partner comes in one door, the account manager needs to know exactly what they're doing, when they're doing it. And I think it was maybe Pat said it, if you don't measure it, you can't manage it, right? So everything now is measured to death in a well-run channel.
Okay, and I've got a great question coming in that I'm going to fire in your direction, Dave, and that is, are IT vendors moving away from heavy enablement requirements in partner programs? Where is the happy medium of asking too little or too much of your partners?
Yeah, really, no, it is a great question, Chris. I saw that come through as well. And, I don't think the objective is to make the requirements more onerous, heavier lifting. I think it's just to target them better. And we see from our customers kind of decreasing reliance on the traditional tiering in the partner program and more of a focus on the role that each individual partner plays. By the time the transaction occurs, there could have been, 3, 4, 5 different partners involved in the consulting and the architecting and the deployment. And so, enabling people and having program requirements, based on that particular role that's played in the process, I think is hugely important. That, Stephen made the comment a minute ago about simplification, and it's almost counterintuitive, because in order to simplify, there's so much work to be done. The tracking and the reporting and the,
building out a program, Dave, like setting it up to work takes work, but it has huge returns.
It does. And, so we heard from our customers through our own kind of analysis with them that almost 50% of the benefits that they pay out through the channel program are overpaid because they haven't spent the time necessary to go through and really verify and validate. And and I'm not suggesting we have the perfect answer for that yet, but really it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of effort. But the simplification at the end lets you target those enablement capabilities right where they need to be in that sales process.
But, Rod, what I would say on your enablement question is it really depends on the type of partner. I think that's what Dave was somewhat getting to. But companies are, like my customers are really trying to focus on what they want partners to do during the sales cycle and in the customer success cycle. And in that, technical enablement is still super important, as well as sales enablement. If you don't know the technology, obviously you can't work on it. And they really do need those partners to step in, and they're taking their incentives and they're shifting them from revenue-based incentives to activity-based incentives, doing POCs, design sessions, and tracking those types of things, and also making sure that there's money to initiate the deployment, whether it's a cloud deployment or an on-premise deployment afterwards. And this really allows you to embed those customers and make sure that there's a long-term revenue stream through adoption and expansion. So enablement's always going to be an important thing, because if you don't know the product, I'm an old technical guy. If you don't know the product, you don't know the product, and you're going to do a bad job implementing it or not at all. So I think that's going to be the fundamental.
Well, and I'll throw it, if you don't know who the...
Sorry, Stephen, let me bring Ken in for a second. Free or paid for online training? What are you seeing?
Well, it's a mixture. It depends on the complexity and the effort, etc. But absolutely agree with Pat. Like, there is absolutely a direct correlation between training and selling. There's no doubt about it. We go back, 20, 25 years ago when Cisco kind of led that whole drive, and they pretty much, closed in on it because of the amount of certifications they got into every university and every school all over the world. What could people sell? They could only sell Cisco, as an example. So we see, just exactly like Pat said, we see in the last, and first of all, we thought maybe it's a COVID thing. It wasn't, though. It's continued on for the last 2 or 3 years. The incentivization for training has never been greater. I'd say we've paid more in the last 3 years than probably in the previous 10, right? And it's a mixture. The free, it really comes down to the complexity of the company's offer, because sometimes it's like literally takes days, and of course they're going to have to get that paid for, etc., versus a simple product online and so on. Okay.
And technology is changing so fast right now, moving to the cloud, that people have to catch up. They have to understand that. And there is a rumor out there that's not true, that you no longer need technologists if you're going to the cloud, and that's far from true. And I think it's been proven over and over again. So you need to keep focus on the companies that actually do things that embed your product and sell your product and implement your product, or you're really going to get left behind, because in the solution world, it gets more and more complex for partners every day, and the amount of technology they need to understand is greater. So if you train them on yours, you're going to probably win.
I think Richard and I probably, and all marketing people, look at this and we recognize that today, the integration of tech stack is almost more important than any individual tool in the stack. So yeah, absolutely, Pat, what you're saying.
It is. And going back to what you guys were talking, my last point on the enablement, or my one point on the enablement, look, if you don't know who they are, where they are, and what they are, it doesn't matter. And I'm sorry, I'm putting all of us in, we do a horrible job. We just throw stuff out there, right? Without smart workflows. I've seen partners land on sites and just throw up because they don't know where to go. They don't want to do. We may understand it because you live in it. This partner's got 14 different vendors. This is what they're in the middle of. Now they're focused and they jump into something. And this is why personalization in the UI and taking that time to understand, they need to be seen for who they are, where they are, and what they are. If you do that, you can get their attention, and they'll answer anything if they know it has a benefit. But I don't think you do a very good job of that.
Personalizing that partner journey.
Hang on, one at a time, guys. Yeah. And I'm actually going to come to Richard. So I know you had a couple of points that you wanted to raise, Richard. But I also want to ask, if we look at the partners out there at the moment, many of them have very, very limited cash reserves. Yep. If there really is a deep recession, they are going to struggle really badly. What should we be doing? One, to understand where they are, and two, to help them through this.
Well, when you think about it, bringing it back to partner programs for a second here. You want to make sure that whoever wants to sell or support your stuff is empowered and capable to go do that. That's the first thing that you should be trying to do. And that ties back to this discussion about the training and the enablement. Well, guess what? You are trying to make sure that anybody who wants to sell your stuff can, or service your stuff can. Then you get the next limitation, which is, but I have scarce resources and I can't afford to provide everything to everybody, just because I have limitations in terms of what I can do. So understanding your cost to serve model, what you can do for free, what you can post online, what's going to require an in-person resource, what are you going to be able to support? That's really, really critical. And then the third element is then how do I really serve that up in a manner that's consumable? Because you probably have so much stuff behind that, to Steve's point, you don't want to be washing them with the fire hose. You want to be providing them with the roadmap that takes them to whatever destination point they want to go to in a very logical and clear way for them in their journey. And so balancing those three things, making sure that you've got everything that you can available to people that makes sense so that they can compete in the marketplace, that you're really tuning and managing that in a cost to serve model that lets you have the return on the investment that you're really needing to make out there in the marketplace. And that you've got then a directed, personalized experience that serves all of that up in a meaningful way to the partner is really the heart of how you have to design things. And that's from a structure, from a partner program, the back-end systems and the processes that you really have in play to make sure that it's being delivered out there.
Yeah,
Hey,
we
Richard,
could
I
add-
see that happen, and then the content's wrong.
Oh,
And then-
absolutely.
and then
Like you
they go
always
through
got to
all
be
of
making
that.
sure that you
I
got
mean,
quality.
Pat's laughing. They go through all of that, and you send them vendor
It's an
based
acceleration of idiocracy, right? Where you end
Okay,
up,
I didn't say that,
end up
Pat, you said
more
that.
quickly getting stuff out that's wrong.
Yeah.
We had one analyst describe partner marketing as bad marketing at scale.
Well,
Yeah.
look, hold on a second. There's a lot of people that are coming in to help partners market and organizations that understand. I see a lot of really smart young people coming in that understand social, that understand some basics. We had someone the other day said, what's content syndication? I'm like, you're running a program with 300 partners and millions of dollars, and you just asked me what content syndication was. And then they provide content, and the content it's 100% towards the vendor.
Well, and to your point, I mean, we do a lot of people. We help a lot of people out with their content, management stuff and how they serve it out there. And we'll do audits, and we'll find that there's companies that have thousands of pieces of content behind what it is that they're trying to do. And you say, well, how many products do you really have? Well, we got kind of 5. And how many marketplaces are you really serving? Maybe again, 5 or 6. Well, why do you have thousands of pieces of content, around that? And so simplifying, that part of the experience, making sure you're much better off delivering 3 great pieces of content than 10 crappy pieces of content. And sometimes, I mean, you see it. I started my career actually running an events business within Microsoft, getting people, and it was all about attendance at the event. Well, after a while, the people who were coming to the event weren't the right people anymore, but everybody felt really good because they had more of them showing up. And the same thing, applies today is how are you making sure that you've got the quality, that you've got a meaningful dialogue, that there's always value being generated with everything that you do? How are you, keeping the pack at bay internally so that they're not just adding complexity and requirements because they have a personal, political agenda that they're trying to drive? Those are all the challenges that you got to face.
Right.
Dave, if I can bring you in, you're looking at the partners, they're coming in, they're all coming in. How do you understand which are the ones you need to focus on? How do you identify those that are likely to be in trouble over the next 12 months? How do you create that focus?
Yeah, I mean, look, first of all, you have to start from the perspective of strategic alignment. Are they taking you into a vertical market that you're not currently in? Is there some solution that they're assembling that you wouldn't be part of without their assistance? So you start with that. You start with that strategic alignment. But then also you've got to understand where are your growth opportunities, who can take you where you need to be from a revenue perspective. I love smaller partners. I think they're great. They often help in niche markets that I wouldn't have access to otherwise. But you know, I'm looking for a leveraged growth from all of the partners that we bring on. And I'm not trying to be selfish about that. Their growth, you know, my growth is their growth, right? So I look for people that have scale to them. I look for people who have you know, a good technical knowledge base in the area that we're working in. And if we're strategically aligned with them, yeah, I'm more than happy to bring them on. You know, it's a long ways from, you know, I used to work at a firewall company up in Seattle, Washington, and my favorite partner was the company that was local and had box seats that I could go watch the Mariners play. You know, we've come a long way from there. I need business plans from partners. I need to see progress towards business plans. I need strategic alignment. And the people that are growing, it's good for them. It's good for me. We just do great together.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Richard,
Yeah,
didn't you have like a 5 C's on that? Sorry, I'm just calling out Richard because I'm pretty daggone sure, Dave, Richard's got a nice
We've actually added a 6. We've added a 6 C to that.
Throwing it out there.
But yeah, we kind of have a really detailed scoring model. And I think the important thing when you're looking at partners is recognizing that what they deliver is different. And all of those things are good in their own way. So some partners are going to help you drive your revenue. Some are going to help you drive consumption. Some are big influencers out there in the marketplace and are really going to help drive a decision around a technology. You know, others might be, you know, more about providing services and skills after the market. Those are all really important as you're looking, what's the value that you're driving? You have to have a way of tracking each of those, measuring them, comparing them, and reporting out the results against those. And so, you know, having some sort of scoring mechanism is the way that we think that you go about doing it.
Okay, we've got just a few minutes left, so I'm going to come around everyone in turn. So let me come to each individual on the panel. And Ken, if I can start with you. Looking to 2023, it's going to be a challenging year. What are the 1 or 2 things that the people on this call should be looking at in terms of their partner programs? Where should they double down? Where should they invest the time and effort in making it work?
Yeah, firstly, I think in a downturn, I think the channel is actually probably going to grow versus not because of the ability to scale in an efficient way. So, you know, we're all in a pretty good space, even though we're facing into headwinds. In terms of enabling your channel, but it's, you know, I said it kind of at the start, I'll say it again, it's around that interaction or making it easy for both your internal teams and your partners to understand your program, understand where they're at with their revenue, their targets, etc. So all about, you know, the biggest single one we hear every day from partners is, you know, the vendors that are easy to work with are the ones we gravitate towards, and they're the ones that they'll ultimately bring their end customer business to, which is, you know, the revenue that pays the bills.
Excellent. And Pat, same question to you. What should we be doubling down on?
Yeah, I think there's 2 things. I think we talked about the CRO alignment as channel as a revenue driving and the ability to measurement. That to me is we can be superstars this year in sales if we align ourselves correctly. I also think the next thing is as you look at your programs, you need to continue to go up the solution stack. You need to go with AWS. You need to figure out how to use the marketplaces. There's dedicated money in those marketplaces that in the contracts that Microsoft and AWS has that you can get your solutions paid for and get faster time to revenue through your sales cycle. Those are the 2 things: is the solutions and the alignment to the CRO to drive revenue, because he's in a tough year and he only has about a 2.5-year life cycle at any company. So if you can help him with that, you'll be a star.
Okay, and Stephen, specific programs that people should really be investing in.
Look, okay, that's a different question. Hold on, right? So look, I'm going to go back to what they were answering first. I was going to say, where should they focus? Look, your partners need to be storytellers. In the end, you have to, this is all about the buyer. That's all that matters. And they're not necessarily great storytellers. And we need to be very good with giving them the right content. It matters. Because once again, everything that everyone said, we can build all the mechanisms. In the end, it's a relationship that they are selling to all of our buyers. And they need to be better storytellers. And the people who do that well are going to succeed. They're going to connect. They're going to win. And they're going to keep them too.
Excellent. And Dave, come in on this one.
Hey,
Programs that we should be looking at in 2023.
Yeah, it's a great, I mean, it's really the focus. You know, it's funny, I look around local businesses here and I can always tell, you know, we'll have restaurants that that start and go under quickly. You know who never goes under? Banks. They never go under, right? I mean, you know, you see 3 people in their office on a weekly basis. So you can kind of tell where the money is. I believe in 23, more than ever, partners are operating on a knife edge of profitability. I mean, one deal that they spend sales and marketing effort to generate that doesn't get registered effectively and protected for them on margin can make the difference between a profitable and an unprofitable quarter. I think more than ever, protecting that is crucial. So I hate to kind of sound redundant on this one, but be easy and be profitable. If there's I guarantee that your company is doing better than your partner's companies are doing, right? You've got margin that you can share with them. Don't charge for training programs, give them incentives, pass them margin, pass them leads, work with them jointly to develop demand and pass it to them. They'll flock to you. If you're easy to work with and profitable for them to engage with on an individual deal basis, they'll flock to you.
Okay. And Richard.
Yeah, I think, again, I'm going to perhaps be controversial here. And that is, I think we're actually seeing the old model of what a program looks like just fading. You know, there's legacy there, but, middle level tiers, product-based competencies or specializations, tracks for different types of partners. Those are really falling by the wayside to people, almost having a menued approach that, gives them, what it is that they're looking for. And if you're using a system that lets you shape that menu and provide them a custom menu when they come based on what it all of a sudden becomes even more powerful. And so if you haven't kind of changed your partner program from that old paradigm of I've got 3 or 4 tiers and 3 or 4 specializations and 3 or 4 marketplaces, and everybody goes to one portal and they've got access to everything, you're not only in 2020, you're actually in 2010. And 2023 is going to look very, very, very different, even for huge companies that are dealing with tens of thousands of partners, as opposed to smaller companies that might be dealing with a couple of hundred.
Okay, and I'm going to go around once again with one final question, be the same question. Pat, you've been through, like we all have, a number of recessions. If you think about the channel, you think about previous recessions, what's one key lesson you've learned that you can pass on to the audience today?
It's a time to get lean and jettison the things that aren't working, and focus on the things that are working. That'll make you stronger when you come out of it. And in this time of transition, as Richard talked about, it's about focusing on the things that are the future versus only the things that are today.
Excellent. Ken, lessons from the past.
Yeah, no, execution, Rod, execution, excellence of execution are for the people that survive. It's about that efficiency.
Excellent. Stephen.
Don't bother them if you don't have value. You got to string with. They don't want to hear from you if you got value, and it's your job to create value in those relationships, right? I think that's just as huge. It goes back to everything Dave was talking about. You got to build trust. The way to do that is you provide value. So it's a kind of a give to get.
Richard.
Make sure you're always thinking about what you're doing for them, not necessarily demanding what are they doing for me.
Yeah, that's what I said.
And
More
Dave,
eloquent.
Whatever. It's all
Only
time.
better, only more eloquently.
It was far more eloquent.
So Rod, I'll answer. This is a little bit different, but I would say from the partner's perspective, partners, you got more choice than you've ever had before. If you're working with a vendor that's not easy to work with and that doesn't put your profitability first, look for a different vendor. I mean, you've got so many options in the market these days, and you can put together solutions using a variety of different tools. So look for the people that are easy to work with. Look for where the profits are.
Yeah.
excellent. Dave, Stephen, Ken, Pat, and Richard, thank you very much indeed for some great insights. This has been recorded and will be available to everyone. There will be a survey immediately after this. We really, really do want everyone's feedback. So please do spend a couple of moments to complete that survey. But I know we can't all clap out loud on a webinar, but I'm sure you all join with me in thanking Dave, Stephen, Ken, Pat, and Richard for some wonderful insights. Thank you guys very, very much indeed.
Thanks, Rod, and the channel
Thanks, Rod,
focus
for
team.
having
You're
us.
awesome.
Yep.
Good guys.
Take care.
All right.